Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Welcome back to West Lindsey, everybody. It is a glorious day today, as you can see. There's a blue sky up there and there isn't any rain. It's going to be great today. Now, I'm beginning this episode outside a manor house, which is actually a farm as well. There it is, there's the house right there, and the farm is behind it. Now, this place is really, really small, and that is one of the most interesting buildings there is in this one. To be honest with you, they're few and far between in this one because it's so small. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here and we're going to drive up this very narrow, very West Lindsey-esque road and head to the main village, where there's a church which is perhaps one of the greatest churches you can find in this district. If I can't get into said church, I do have a little backup plan. So let's see if we can, shall we? Welcome to Snarford. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Grayingham, near Curtin in Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Snarford, a very small place located just off the A46 between Lincoln and Market Rasen in West Lindsey. It might be small these days, but once upon a time, this was a thriving village. There are so few houses here now that I imagine without the aid of modern maps, most people would struggle to understand just how big this once was. Its main landmark is St Lawrence's Church, which stands almost alone amid wide open fields. It used to be the companion of a great mansion that stood on land formerly occupied by the medieval village. The mansion has now disappeared. The church retains some truly incredible monuments that tell Snarford's story. Snarford was originally called Snortr's Ford. It's believed to have taken its name from a Viking colonist who settled here in the 9th century. It grew steadily through the Middle Ages, but was already declining by 1606, when the mansion was built by the St Paul family. Originally hailing from Nottingley in West Yorkshire, the St Pauls gained possession of Snarford in around 1400 by way of marriage. The family owned the entire parish. Their real rise to power came in Tudor times because they were lawyers, and they would acquire lands confiscated from Lincolnshire's monasteries by Henry VIII. The St Paul family tombs are easily the most magnificent we've ever seen on this channel. So without further ado, let's go and see them! Snarford parish is quite small in terms of area as well as population. Despite that, it does have land on both sides of the A46, the road between Lincoln and Market Rasen. Here we're on the southern side and we're driving from the manor house into what is the main village. The manor house dates back to the 15th century. Snarford's biggest and most well-known property though was Snarford Hall. There were actually two halls in Snarford. The older of the two was in existence from around the mid-1500s. It would be replaced in 1606 with a new hall, the one that the St Paul family would live in. It was designed by John Thorpe, who is widely regarded as the first ever named architect in England. Records suggest the new hall was originally planned to be an H-shaped building, but excavations here in the 1950s revealed that not to be the case. Instead, it had circular turrets at each end, rather like a castle. It had a central doorway that led directly into the hall. So here we are then in the main village. You've probably seen 50% of the houses that Snarford's got already, to be honest with you. There's a little row here of 6, 2, 4, 6, and beyond these there's a handful of others and the church and maybe a farm or two. To be honest with you, this one is so small I did consider not even having a Strava map for this one, but I have got it running, so there will be a map at the end. So let's head up this road. Like I said, there's not much on it, but the church is certainly the biggest and best feature in this place, and you'll see what I mean when we get to it. Hopefully it's open. There might only be a few properties out here, but the locals are still keen to sell stuff. Here's some bags of kindling on offer, for example, outside one house. One of the 6 houses in that row is called Countryside View, and that's by no means an inaccurate name, if this is anything to go by. Beyond the houses is Hall Farm. Next to the manor house, this is probably Snarford's most impressive building. It's a 6-bedroom holiday let according to my sources. However, historically, these buildings and plenty more besides would have belonged to Snarford Hall, hence the name. Right next door to the farm is the Church of St Lawrence. The main body of this was built in around 1300, about the time of Snarford's most prosperous period. There's a board outside the church which gives you a little bit of history of not just the church but also the St Paul family. As you can see too, the church was indeed open. So of course this board is really useful because it's got an image here of how Snarford possibly looked in the 1600s. You can recognise certain bits. I mean, here's the church, for example, which we're about to go into. But look at all this behind. You've got Snarford Hall and all these gardens, and it's just amazing that it's all gone. It's no longer there anymore. This tells you all about it. There's an account here which is from the 17th century apparently. It's a bit difficult for you to read obviously on camera, but it's difficult for me to read, never mind you actually. But yeah, it's definitely worth reading this board to get an idea of what Snarford used to be like. So let's go into the church then and let's see what's in there, and I think your jaws are going to hit the floor. The church is not in active use. It's another one that's looked after by the church's Conservation Trust. In around 1600, its chancel was enlarged to accommodate the St Paul family tombs. These date from the late 16th and early 17th centuries. They're quite magnificent, whichever way you slice it. The great 6-poster tomb is that of Sir Thomas St Paul and his wife Faith Grantham. It's proudly emblazoned with the arms of his family connections and is surmounted by his kneeling children. Sir Thomas St Paul was a zealous Protestant and a supporter of Elizabeth I's government. His son was Sir George St Paul. He was the wealthiest and most influential of the family. An MP for Lincolnshire and a leading magistrate, he became a baronet under James I. It was he, in 1606, who would begin building the family's great mansion. It stood around 200 yards south of the church, and now it's completely vanished. I told you, this place is utterly amazing. absolutely fantastic, and I'm so pleased the church was open, because my backup plan was to use a collection of pictures which were sent to me by a lady called Lexi, who's a big fan of the channel, it's fair to say. And yeah, they would have had to have sufficed for this, but thankfully I've managed to get in myself and see these in person. This is absolutely amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before in such a small church. The colours are just fabulous. I mean, I know we've seen effigies in other places, but this is right up there with some of the best. Probably is the best, to be fair. It's just amazing. The intricacy, you know, the attention to detail on these is just fabulous. It really is. Brilliant. Well worth a visit, folks. If you're ever out this way in Lincolnshire, get yourself to this church. And that's it. That's been the parish of Snarford. Very different to how it used to be centuries and centuries ago, you have to say. And some of those monuments inside the church, the effigies, the tombs, unbelievable. Well worth visiting, and I'm so glad the church was open, like I said earlier. Right, time to head back to the car. It'll take me all of about 5 minutes because, as I said earlier, this place is so small these days it doesn't take you long to walk through it. So yeah, that's been the parish of Snarford, and time for me to move on to my next one here in West Lindsey. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I am out.